name is Heahter Di Stefano, and I just want to share a few tips with you guys about teaching virtually, teaching music virtually, whether that's with private lessons or in a group setting or recorded sessions. All of these apply. So the first thing is to check your lighting. So as you can see behind me, I have a window that at certain times of the day is really bright. So you want to check that light before you start filming. So for example, right now it's pretty bright. This might be blinding a student, and also check on the platform that you're using. So if you're using Zoom versus Google Hangouts, it shouldn't make a difference, but it does. So for example, I did a FaceTime, same time of day. As soon as I hung up with that student and got with the next one that was on Google Hangouts, this was like a blinding light on Google Hangouts where it wasn't on FaceTime. So just to show you, just on the same platform. So my light is just as good now, and there's not that blinding distraction. I left a little bit of light poking through just so I have some natural light, but you may want to just close that completely. It's not really helping that much, but now it's also not distracting. The second thing I want to talk to you guys about is your background. Kids at school don't see the same thing throughout the day. So they need a little bit of a change when you get on, especially if you're teaching every day or you have the same recording sessions. Maybe change it up a little bit, not drastically, but for example, I can have this view. It's not messy in the background. There are things on the wall, so if a student does want to see something behind me, they can go, oh, what poster is that? They have that, but it's not terribly distracting. So I am front and center, but I'm not taking up the whole camera. I see a lot of people doing this to their students. So they're wanting their face to be really, really close. But if a student is on a fairly large screen, that's weird. It just is weird. Nobody wants to see that, no matter how beautiful you are. So just take a little bit of space back. So they do have that background to keep a visual interest in the room so that they're looking at the screen. That's the key. You want them to be looking at the screen the whole time that you're teaching so that they don't get distracted by this thing over here or their dog over here that's doing this. So this is my number one background, just because it's the most convenient for me. I'm sitting at my piano, so I can play. If I need to play an example, it's easy for me, and I can still be looking at the screen at the same time. This is my second view. So again, I have my piano right here. I have still pictures on the wall, so it's interesting, but I do have easy access to the piano. I don't like to use this view as much if I know that I'm going to have to reference a melody that I need to play, because then I'm going to have to turn my back to the students, and it's just like in your classroom, in your regular classroom, you don't want to turn around if you can avoid it. So I use this a lot for younger kids where we're maybe using other instruments like the ukulele or shakers, any kind of rhythm instrument, or if I'm just doing a class where I just don't need the keyboard. So this is a good view for that. Again, it's not messy. There's not a lot of clutter around. Okay, so the next tip that I have is about interacting with your students. Obviously, they are not here for you to interact with, and if you're doing a recorded class, this is especially important to interact with the camera. Pretend like the camera is a person. So if I'm asking a question, I might lean forward a little bit. Still, again, don't put your whole face in the screen, but use that little bit of interaction. Use your hands, okay? So if we're saying, yay, sometimes there's a delay if you're live. So doing this is much more immediate than saying, oh yes, that's a great job, because that might be delayed a couple seconds, and we all know that sometimes those few seconds make a big difference. If you're giving a piano lesson virtually, you do have to use your voice, because obviously they're not looking at the screen while they're playing. They are looking at the piano. The other thing, the other recommendation that I got, After giving some classes, several people said they really liked it when I got up and moved around with the camera. So if I said, okay, let me grab this book from off of my shelf, instead of me turning my back to the camera, I just picked it up and they got to see. So they got another view. They got to move with me while I grabbed Shrek or this. At this point, my face is not so important as keeping the attention of the student. So take them with you when you can. Let them move around a little bit, even though they're stationary. So move that camera with you when you can. Just to review, the 4 things. Check your lighting before you start on the platform that you're going to use. Check your background. Make sure there's nothing that you don't want the kids to see, such as clutter or whatever it may be, something from the background. Interact with the camera with your students and move around. The only other recommendation that I have is if you have generally a lower energy level, and I know right now teaching from home, it's hard to keep that energy up because we are so sedentary. A lot of us are really sedentary right now. So make sure that your voice is energetic and you're wanting the kids to listen. And if there's something that's exciting to you, make sure that they can get that excitement from what you're saying. So let them know if there's something in the lesson, oh, this is my favorite part, or, oh, I love this song. This is great. I'm super excited. Anything that's going to change the flow of class, because nobody wants to hear a monotone speaker, and especially not kids, especially not when they've been doing all virtual learning all day. If you're the last thing that they're doing, then by this time they're just tired of looking at the screen. Even though kids now are so used to doing so many things on the screen, nobody wants to look at that all day. It can get really boring after a while. So I hope everyone is doing great with their virtual lessons. We're all going to get through this together, and hopefully soon I'll be able to share more tips with you guys as I teach more. Thanks for joining me.